Welcome to the First Church of Meher Baba the Awakener. I am not Meher Baba. I am one of his humble admirers. So I want to talk about the opportunity that Baba gave us to connect with God and hear God's word and do things with the word. Now, I cured my herpes. That was in 1996, and no, 1993. I'm 75. Give me a break, okay? 1993, and I think it misled me because I thought the opportunity that we were given was to cure medically incurable diseases, and I didn't realize, not really, not fully, that pales into insignificance, although it's still worth doing. Don't get the wrong idea here. But it pales into insignificance next to the opportunity to change. I changed from doing this. It took time. It was an involutionary movement. I became more loving, and I wish I had been more loving way back, but I wasn't. And it took a long time, to like become more and more. It's funny because Baba said that when we put others before ourselves, or we love others, we are loving God. And I became more loving with people, like at this point in my life, or at this point in my development, when I find myself, of course, when I'm out shopping, let's say, I find myself looking around at people and I think, oh God, this person has really done himself in. And then I just stop and I see, I have like a simpatico, like I'm looking at the person and caring. And have you noticed that as a society we are addicted to sugar and gluten? And you see a huge amount of obesity, just even in people who are good looking. They're going down that slippery slope. Kids. And when I look at it, I don't think like, yuck, look at that disgusting, which is what I used to think. I'd look at people, and when I used to do courses, and the people who worked for me did a lot of exercise and ate really well. And I did not realize this, this thing about gluten, which, a little gluten might be okay. but I rarely ate much gluten. What I would do is have like strawberries for lunch and then go out and eat raw fish for dinner. The gluten was in the beer. And, I sometimes I got pretty plump even from doing that, for me. Like, there was a point where I was 175 pounds, and I'm 140 pounds now, so, but of course now, I don't go near sugar and gluten. I read labels and don't buy things, or I don't buy most things. I suppose I veered off topic, haven't I? the the point of all this is that I'm more loving, and I'm more loving because I keep tuning into God all the time. Try it here. Just ask, can I connect to God? See, you notice I get a spontaneous signal. That's my finger moving. Now, this is not the God connection. It's an indicator that it's happened. And so I found the indicators, having feedback really helps. It really helps. Now, for a lot of people, and it's quite possibly true, they say, well, my feedback comes from God. He or she, as God has no sex. So God gives me a good feeling. Yeah, me too. And so they say, well, I don't need to get the finger signal. Okay, fine. The good feeling is what's important. And see, then check it out. Are you more loving? That's another thing that helps. It helps to notice it. We put up a web college. And in the web college, there's a lesson called the accelerator. That's what the accelerator is. It has nothing to do with finger things. It's, questions like, how have I changed? Are there some good responses that are now easier? See, when I see somebody who has a problem, an obvious physical problem, I have a better response than I used to. It's easier for me to respond with love instead of judgment. And, I went through a lot to get here. There was a time when, you ever have a problem with lust? Well, there was a time when every time I'd see somebody with a good body, I'd go like, I'd have a lustful response, and then I came out of that. And what it went into was, all of a sudden I found myself looking at the person and picturing them as a dead body. And boy, that's a cure for lust. Let me tell you, it may not sound great. It isn't great, it's uncomfortable making. But one thing about it is it gave me a perspective that I just didn't have otherwise. What can I say? It gave me a new perspective on people. To not, like, I stopped wanting something from them, and I began to see into their struggles and what they needed in life, and so on. It's funny because now what that turned into was, was waiting in the car for Greg to mail something at the post office. And this girl came out, and she was like walking along without a care in the world, chewing gum, the kind of person who I would lust after, And so I did a little lusting for a couple of minutes. I haven't lost it, completely. And then as we were, pulling out, I started thinking about her a little bit. And I was thinking how the idea that I might have would be that she would be all happy about having sex with anybody she was attracted to, one time, and not thinking too much about it. And then later I started to think, people like that, they may look like that, but she may have feelings. Like she might develop feelings about people. That's really funny. I read a Reacher novel where, he's having an affair with the sheriff, and they're solving a case together, and she says, this could be dangerous. Like we might develop feelings for each other, And Reacher says, well, if I notice any, you'll be the first to know. If I notice one, you'll be the first to know. I just thought that was cute, funny. I really do enjoy those. I think that Lee Child is one of the best writers since Hemingway. He really knows how to write. One thing about him. Great premise, but also he knows how to write. Well, so again, I'm veering off topic here. But see, the point is, I have a friend who keeps telling me, give them more of a lesson. And there's a problem with that because I'm not a teacher. I'm just naturally not a teacher, And so I don't really do lessons. We have lessons in the web college. Keely wrote a lot of the lessons for the web college. And she's good. She's really good with lessons, which is why I asked her to write them. I had a horror of trying to write them myself. So, and she does a bang up job with that. And so, but what I assume that when I show, like, you can do things like, here's something, for example, she was telling me this, so I'm going to try to do a little more of this. Because she is a reigning expert on lessons, and she's got something, so I should, try to implement her suggestions. I am now connecting with God. I can feel that, I felt my whole experience change a little bit. Baba said that there were many people on Earth, I mean, not by far even over 1%, but many people would hear his words spontaneously, and it would really profoundly change them. And I was thinking about one that I know about, a guy who's an author called Eckhart Tolle. I have not, I must confess, really read extensively in his books, but I did read the introduction to one of his books, and it was rather interesting, I found, because he was talking about exactly this. Maybe that was all I needed to read, because it gave me what I needed for this talk, And what he was saying was that he was like my friend Edward, who got hit with this experience of bliss. I don't know if his was exactly bliss. You'd have to read his book, I mean, and he's written a bunch of them, so I don't know even which one it was in anymore, but, you could browse through them. He was saying that he got hit with a peacefulness. And interestingly enough, I was watching a panel of New Age pundits on the, YouTube or something. I didn't probably watch the whole thing. I don't remember what it was, but I think it was on YouTube. Maybe it was on TV. But anyway, there were these, people who were like I think Deepak Chopra might have been one of them, the kind. And he was on this panel, and he was different. He stood out like, you could just look at him and see he was not like the other ones, which I liked, But anyway, what he was saying was that he didn't feel like doing anything anymore. That was a feeling I had. That's another thing. This thing I'm showing you how to do is dangerous, because if you do this, you won't be you. That's what it is to change, Buster. When you change, you're not you anymore. Your friends are going to start saying, you're not yourself. Oh, God. Do you remember a movie called The Ruling Class? It was Peter O'Toole. If you've never seen it, check it out. Because he's this British aristocrat who goes crazy and believes he's Jesus Christ. And when he's Jesus Christ, he's this really wonderful, sweet person. And then when he turns back into himself, he becomes this warmongering, vicious monster. It's wonderful. It's a great movie. Anyway, I have lots of recommendations, Anyway, Eckhart Tolle was talking about this thing where he changed. That's what happened. Like, he was suddenly transformed. And I wouldn't be talking about this unless I believed him. But when he was writing about it, it sounded really familiar. So for me, it was not a stretch, And he was saying that he sat down in the park on a bench, and people started coming over to him and saying, "What have you got?" And they wanted him to, show them how he did what he did. And of course, it's really not teachable. So, and I don't know what happened next, because that's where I left the thread of the story. One thing I will say is that my friend Greg, who lives with us and is my wife's boyfriend, as a matter of fact, since I was not capable of having an intimate relationship with anybody because I'm a sex addict. And so, but that's another story for another time, But anyway, they're together now. They've been together like 30 years or something, long time. And we've all been thick as thieves the whole time. But anyway, when Greg came to do my courses originally, it was because he was, at a dance company, and he saw a friend of his there, and she was completely different. And he said, "What did you do?" And she told him about my course. And that's how he got into my course. But of course, this is light years beyond that. And I guess that was pretty good, because it sure did attract a lot of people, Anyway, I think this is a good place for me to say sayonara, and I'll be back. We'll have more movies. I'm sure I'll think of something else to say. I always do. I'm just a fountain of things to say, So toodaloo.